Here on Kiwi Radio Wammo Breakfast. Time to welcome back the Geek Show onto the Radio Wammo Show, and it's good to have them back. Calvin, first of all, this week, who's been on holiday, and that's going to be one of the things we're going to be talking about. But welcome to the show, Calvin.
Oh, it's nice to be back.
Yeah,
been away for quite some time.
But quite some time indeed. We know you went back home, didn't you? Or home as in the homeland.
Went back to Blighty, back to the UK, and it was bloody cold.
Yeah, I bet it was. They're really frozen. In fact, I was just reading that story about the guy who was trapped in his car for 2 months. Did you hear about that?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yes, somewhere in Europe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know that's scary. That's scary cold.
Yeah.
That was what it was like in Newcastle a bit. It was really, really quite scary cold.
I don't know what's more scary, sort of being in that car 2 months without food, or being in that car 2 months without your mobile phone working, or some kind of technology, you know?
Some internet access, yeah. It's a tough one. I think for the first couple of weeks, the internet access would bother you most, and then I think food would become the big overriding factor.
The basics. Today's a special day, though, isn't it?
It is. It's a palindromic date. It's 2102-2012.
There you go.
So the front of the date reads the same as the back of the date. I love palindromic days.
Yeah.
We don't get them very often.
So we should be feeling in balance today, I suppose. Is that, just...
Yeah, we should be... Yeah. We shouldn't be falling to either side. It's like the old... How do you tell if the drummer's riser is level?
Yeah.
At the back of the stage? Well, the drool comes out from both sides of his mouth at the same time.
Yeah. Hey, a visiting Pom yesterday created all kinds of mayhem on the internet. My Twitter stream just seemed to be full of talk about data caps, how slow broadband, and all about Stephen Fry.
Yeah, well, broadband caps are causing piracy, basically. The fact that we have to pay for our data is stopping the legitimate services like Netflix coming along and offering people a business model which will get money actually into the hands of the content creators.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm saying, really, what we call piracy is this middle ground between the old way of selling people a physical object and the new way of distributing that content in a timely manner to what are really just disillusioned customers who can't buy what they want legitimately. But that gap in between those two technologies is being named piracy. But I think when you offer people a fair deal, they don't pirate anymore. Do you know anybody that pirates apps for their phone?
No. Well, no, wouldn't know the first way to go about it, really.
I mean, I've seen how you can do it, and it's just not worth the hassle because the price of an app is so low and the stores are so good.
Yeah.
The stores actually put a lot of value in there. You know you're getting fairly good stuff. And it's the same abroad with things like Netflix. Once people have got a Netflix account and they're paying, $10 a month for all the media they can eat, they stop downloading illegally, and their money goes to the content creators. But those business models don't work. Well, the Netflix business model will not work if you've also got to pay for your data. Yeah. And that's the big problem. People would happily pay, 10 or 20 New Zealand dollars a month to watch television and films legally. However, add on an overhead of, anything up to about $18 per film on bandwidth costs, maybe more, depending on how much you're paying. Yeah. If you wanted something in high def like Blu-ray, that's at $2 a gigabyte, you're talking $36. Yeah. At the rate I'm paying.
Yeah, significant.
Which is way too much to rent a movie.
Yeah. But I guess the telcos would say, like Telecom would say, well, there are plans you get 160 gigabytes. It doesn't have to be 20 gigabytes a month. So, you still can have as much data as you want. You just got to pay for it.
Yeah, but it's the cost of that compared with the cost that's going to the content creators. Once again, it's the middlemen who are making a huge profit. And after you've paid for the data, people don't really. Well, it's not so much that people don't feel like paying for a Netflix subscription. Netflix can't get traction in an area where people have to pay for their download by the gigabyte.
Sure.
So they simply don't have that option. Until we can get some broadband that isn't uncapped, these businesses simply can't get off the ground in this country.
So, in your experience of your travels, I mean, is it all that bad here in New Zealand?
Well, no, it isn't. This is one of the things that I was quite surprised at. And this is something that I saw happening maybe a decade ago, and we're actually starting to see the reality biting. That the places that got the internet first, they put in lots and lots of cables everywhere. Wi-Fi didn't really exist at the time, or if it did, it was expensive and it was very, very slow. Or people were thinking that data was going to go over the 3G networks, or at the time 2G and stuff like that. So a lot of the countries that got in there early have put in a lot of wired and cabled access. But countries which haven't got all of that infrastructure built and who are coming to the game a bit later on, they've got a lot of Wi-Fi technology that they can use that's much better and much cheaper. Really. So when I went to the UK, what I was finding was I was having a lot of problems finding free Wi-Fi.
Okay.
It was available in cafes, but every cafe had a different system. You get handed a chit with some form of login on.
Yeah.
And about half the time, that chit and that login didn't work within the time it took me to have a cake and a coffee.
Yeah.
Whereas here in Wellington, I can walk around with my phone and get free Wi-Fi pretty much all the time. I don't have to ever go onto high expensive data over 3G plans.
Yeah.
And we've got things like CafeNet. So with a single login, you can be getting Wi-Fi in any cafe without each cafe having to stick you through their own login process and all that rigmarole.
It seems that the Wellington, though, is probably an oasis within New Zealand. I don't think you get that same experience, say, in Auckland.
Yeah, but I think Wellington is a good example of how we're so small here that we can actually roll this stuff out in a way that it can't get rolled out in a country like the UK of over 60 million. So while we may not see it in Auckland at the moment, I don't think Auckland is so big that no one could take a punt on starting a business like that. Or, that these things couldn't be rolled out by the government as a shared service. Because this is an infrastructure that really would help every business in the country pretty much. And it would help new businesses start because it would help new business models start.
Okay, very quickly, a few helpful apps on the road.
Well, the stuff that really worked for me, Air New Zealand's M-Pass got me off to a great start. They have software on your mobile phone that you can just show to the check-in machines. It'll tell you if your planes are delayed and things like that.
Cool.
So that was a really good start to traveling around the world with my smartphone, having my smartphone keep everything going. Evernote, rather obviously, was brilliant for me. Anything, like all my travel documentation, I took a photo of. So if I lost the documentation, I had a photo of it on my phone.
Nice.
All logged in Evernote.
Yeah.
Also, what was quite handy is I found a really good little app called Pills on the Go, because I'd just been in for some dental surgery and I had a course of antibiotics to keep taking.
Oh, okay.
And Pills on the Go just kept dropping me a little alarm and going, you're supposed to be taking one of your tablets with food later today.
That's quite nice, yeah. Cool.
And I was using a front end to Google Calendar called Business Calendar. And Google Calendar did a really good job of tracking what the local time was as I flew around the world. I was quite amazed that it would have my takeoff time of a plane in the local time where it took off, and the landing time was in the time zone where the plane landed, which was it was fantastic.
Keeps you in sync, even if your body's not.
Yes, and the basic functionality of clock, the standard clock app on my phone, was that you get a world clock, so I could set the three main destinations that I needed as I went around the world.
And what about,
of course, Google.
What about communicating?
Well, communicating, I actually had a few problems with what seemed the obvious ones. Skype and Google Chat failed on me several times when I was over there. And the only thing that worked for getting face-to-face chat going while I was over there was Oovo, OOVOO, which is another video chat client out there. But where Skype failed, Oovo came through.
Ah, right, Oovo. Okay, and that's as you say, cross-platform as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then the last couple of things is Google Maps. Obviously, when you're trying to find places in London, how do I get to my hotel? Where's the nearest place to eat? Maps was obviously, perfect for that. But it was most fun when I was on a high-speed train going from Newcastle to London, which had Wi-Fi access.
Yeah.
Because you're moving fast enough to see yourself moving along the map. It's great. I just watched the triangle move along the map going, oh, so that's what's out the window. It made for a really interesting journey.
Yeah. Who needs to look out the window?
You've got a screen to look at.
Those are some...
The last
you got one more?
One more is that I found out when I got back that there's an app called TripIt, Trip-It, which does almost all of these things all in one. It's a big organizational app for all the things you need to remember when you go on a trip. And if I'd have known about that, I would have used it at the time, but I only found out when I got back home.
Sometimes it's always the way. Okay, TripIt. So check that one out as well. Calvin, of course, is over at The Geek Show, thegeekshow.com, 2 3s rather than 2 E's, and also on Twitter as well, twitter.com/CHELFYN. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much, Calvin.
Okay, cheers.